Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Yesterday we had a beautiful trade off of $20 margin with $100 risk because we are using cross margin. We made $650. I want to break down that trade and what happened yesterday. And I was able to take two more trades. I didn't get recorded, I'm sorry, but I'll show you guys what those were and what the closes was. One was a day trade and one was a swing trade. But from yesterday's trade, we had this position here. This is the full video. You can watch it from yesterday. It shows you guys my entry, my exit, and how we trailed the stop loss down. I even did get a screen recording of me closing out the trade here, and you guys can see we basically ended up moving our take profit up, and the only reason was because we saw XRP bouncing, and you guys, you can see that happening here at the $2.44 mark. Yes, we did miss a bit of this rundown, about 1%, but you never want to be greedy in the market. You want to take what you can get and walk away with it rather than chasing more profit. Anytime I do that, I end up losing money. So I always recommend it. Do not chase it. Just let the chart go to you. And that does take time to get comfortable with. But here's basically what happened. We moved our trailing stop up for take profit because we noticed the market was going to bounce a bit. And took us about 2 hours and a half fully for this trade to be screen recorded. And then it closed out here. Let's fast forward. Let me show you guys right there. So it was the last end bit here. It ended up closing out at $681 in profit. What we always have to think about though is the fees involved. On this one, the fees were $3 for the close because it was a limit order and $6 for the open. So we literally paid $7 in fees. Heck, you could even say $8 in fees, but we made $681 in profit. Then a little bit after that, I had noticed that BTC had hit the bottom and it was starting to do a run up, and we can actually see that on the chart here. So for BTC, we took a long. And the reason we took a long is it was right here, and the stop loss was not very good at all. So I did not love the stop loss, right? The stop loss was a little bit bigger than normal, right, at about 1%, but BTC is a lot less volatile. And regardless, we will always use stop losses. You will always see me use stop losses on this channel. I would much rather take the small risk than get the entire account liquidated. That's happened to me many years before, and that is the worst feeling to go through. So I do not recommend you take those types of risks. But we took an entry here for BTC, and we actually ended up closing right at the top there at around 113,373. So we ended up closing, and see what I like to do, you guys, is I'll draw a line and then I'll copy the price over, double click it like this, and then I can put it in this way, and it will put the line exactly where we took that close. And we can duplicate this down here and put in the entry, which was 111, and I'm just going to do 700, and you can see that came, nope, I did that wrong, which is okay. So let's just copy it a little bit easier this way. So we've got it here like this. So this was our entry, and then that was our exit for BTC. I was going to take a short this morning because I noticed a 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5 topper. I just didn't get a chance because we're taking a bit of a walk, but the market's always going to show us opportunities. And now what we're going to look for is another opportunity, either for a long or a short. And what I want to do in this video as well, so I really do recommend you guys stay till the end and make sure you're subscribed so you don't actually miss this information, because my goal here is just to make trading easy for you, because it has been a long 8 years of learning, and I'm hoping you can learn it way faster than that. I'm really hoping you can do it within a couple of months, because trading is all just about the mentality. It is not even necessarily about knowing where the market's going to go. A lot of people feel that way. That was originally my original idea. I wanted to win every trade, and every time I took a loss, I would have weeks of downtime, and you don't want that. You need to just be persistent and keep going and take the risks, and make sure your risk management as well for you to actually be able to profit. Now, also yesterday, we had this trend line drawn out for XRP, and this was that short that we took that made it down to here. We took that exit. We did not take a long on XRP. We actually ended up doing that on BTC, but you guys can see it is actually following the exact same scheme as BTC, as it always tends to do that. So you have a good probability in this position to have taken a short. Granted, it is only a 1% move on XRP, but then if we go to BTC, it is a full 1% drop as well. And the thing with BTC is it's a lot less volatile, so you can risk a higher margin balance, right? So like on this one, I would have risked 250, where this BTC trade, where we also made 370 yesterday, this was only a $25 margin. And you can also see that here we market entered with our entry. So we took $15 in fees plus another $8 for the exit. So 15 plus 8, we're looking at roughly $23 in fees, and we made $370. So if you subtract that, just yesterday we were up about $1,000 on this. Now the cool thing is BTC does have this other side to it, which is called their pro side. So if you go into here, you've got the regular version, which allows you to use only cross margin, and it allows the 500x. That's why I use this a lot. But they also do have the pro version, and in their pro version, they're basically building the isolated margin piece of it. I'm not a big fan of isolated margin, and I'm also not a big fan of this because it limits me to 200 or 125x. Now look, I do clearly have the available balance to be using less or to be using more margin, but my thing with that is it kind of just messes up my strategy because then I always need to use more money, and I'm not a big fan of doing it that way. I really like using less margin in a higher multiple using leverage, which allows me to have the same position sizing, but it also allows me to take such bigger gains, right? So at a 1% move at a 500x, you make 5 times the margin. So if the margin was $100 on 1%, you could make $500. And if you're always risking 1%, then you're always risking 500 to make 500. That's not a great R&R. So you want to be able to shoot for a 2%. But as you guys can see here, literally BTC in the last 1 hour and 18 minutes has moved 1.5%. So on the example I just gave, this would have been a $750 profit off of $100 margin. And the risk on this would have had your stop loss. So like if you entered here, your stop loss would have just been right above this last one here because there is no other higher point. So you're literally risking $100 to have made $750 from this specific trade example here. But on the pro side, we actually just closed out on a long swing trade here. This was closed out this morning. I did it right when I woke up, and we had opened it months ago. See, and I'm not a huge fan of swing trading, but look at that profit potential. We literally risked about $1,000 and made $5,600. I don't want to count that for the week because that is a long-term trade, but if we were to add it all up, that is about $6,000 from yesterday today in closes. Now, I don't know where it gave me this loss, even though it was like a long time ago, it didn't have that. But as you can see here, even on the pro side, we still printed a lot more money than we lost, right? And that's the whole point of trading. You want to be able to have these big wins and these little losses. That's how you're going to be able to have over time the winning trades and the winning account, right? That's the only way to do it. And you have to be okay with some of these losses. Now, I do understand that the past, week, we really haven't taken a loss and the market hasn't had that opportunity. We got lucky, you could say, but I actually call it just consistency, right? Because look at this. We took these 3, but it all evened out with that one single win. So pretty much in the last week alone, we're about up $2,500 on just these small margin positions. And if I would have 10x the margin, like for example here, I only used $25 in margin. If I had used $100 in margin, this would have been a $1,200 profit trade. Same thing here. This was only a $20 margin position. Yes, the risk was 5 times that at the 1% loss at $100 risk, but we risked 100 to make 681. And if we would have done it with our standard $100 margin play, this would have been a times 5. So it would have been 600 times 5. So we'd have had about $3,000 on this, but we would have also risked $500. So just always kind of keep that in mind when you're thinking of the risk portfolio. But let's go over the chart and kind of look at what we need to do market analysis wise. So I love on my charts to have these trend lines drawn because the market moves in these cycles. Like look at this that's why another reason we were going to short earlier, because we have this long-term red line right here, which is a trend line that BTC did break, but now it is restructuring and using it. On top of that here, we have this giant white long-term support and resistance, and you guys are gonna see that throughout my charts. I also do keep the FBB Bollinger Bands here, and I do use the envelope. The envelope is a repainting, so you don't wanna use that as your main reason for entries and exit, because like, look, if you would have gotten in here, it would have been a huge liquidation loss there. So instead, you just want to use it as a double point to give you confirmation, right? And we'll go over some of these strategies in the later videos. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't actually miss this news. And every day we're going to be posting these trades. And every time I take a trade, I'm going to do my best to record it and give you guys an analysis. I really want to make trading easier for you because you do not need to pay the 8 years that I've had to pay to learn, right? It took me 6 years to become profitable. finally 2 years of profitability. Now let's make that 20 years of profitability. And the best way to do that is just to be consistent over these next 20 years. Be okay with the small losses and chase the big gains. And you know, a lot of people would ask, like, why did we not keep trailing our stop loss here or let it bounce all the way back up? For two reasons. One, I wanted the 600 off the $20 trade for the video. But two, because I noticed that a bounce was coming, and I like to day trade, right? I like taking the money today and then looking for that next position tomorrow. Sometimes I'll even let it stay overnight or the next day. And you can, in a sense, call some of those swing trades, but I'm not a big fan of a multi-month trade because you never know what's going to happen in the market. Now, if we had been in a short position from here and benefited from the huge liquidation, maybe, but those are anomalies that you genuinely don't have a way to control or understand when they're coming. So my advice today, draw out your charts, organize them to fit your needs and from what you understand, and do not overcomplicate them. There's many times where you use so many indicators that it makes it difficult. You don't need that. If you don't understand what an indicator does and the math behind that indicator, there's no reason to have it on your chart. It just becomes extra noise to screw you over. You could literally just trade with support and resistance, no hesitation. And the only negative to that is you have to be consistent. If you continuously change your strategy every day, you're never going to be profitable for the long run. One thing I've also learned is when you're taking trades and you start taking losses, that doesn't necessarily mean your strategy is not working. It just means these market conditions aren't fitting your needs. And it's the time to take a step back, relax, give yourself a day, and then come back to the market because the market's always moving. There's always an opportunity to make money. Now, my plan for today, I'm going to wait a little bit and see if Bitcoin actually ends up stabilizing down here. If it does, we're going to start looking for some longs for the rest of the day and see if we can get a bounce back. And here's why I would say this, because in a sense here, we have a double bottom, right, you guys? And we can see that right here. We've got this, and then it's done another one of these, and it's looking like it's an opportunity to kind of bounce back up here, but we don't know for sure. And we're not going to just guess and estimate randomly. We're going to give the market time to pick a direction, and then we're going to enter into that right direction. And also one more thing to think about, you guys, there's two ways. You can either look for a continuation or a reversal, depending on your trading strategy, and you just want to stick to that. But every time you flip back and forth, you're going to take multiple losses on both ends, and you'll never end up being profitable. So I hope this video helped you guys today. If it did, throw me a like, throw me that young subscribe, and comment below what trades you're taking. I'd love to know. And if you've got questions, don't hesitate to ask. I'll reply right away as soon as I can and give you guys the insight that I'm learning here. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys on the next video. Keep trading.